joining me. I welcome everyone. Today's workshop is all about sustainability, creating a sustainable product to cover your bowls. And I have to tell you, these are going to make great gifts for the holidays. So think, I know we're starting to get in the burr months. So just start thinking about holiday gifts. This is a very easy bowl cover that I'm going to show you how to make your own pattern, so it doesn't matter what size bowl you have, and I'm actually going to show you some tricks on the pattern. You will be able to stitch a bowl cover. Now the bowl cover has elastic on it, so it can go over a variety of different bowls in my house. So I kind of picked one that was a common size, and it can go in a larger bowl or a smaller bowl. This one in particular I have here, I've actually added, which we'll talk about this towards the end, a laminate on the fabric, so I can make this to go in the refrigerator to keep it, it becomes waterproof. So think about materials you have around the house, old tablecloths. Like I was in the Walmart the other day and I saw that they had their outdoor tablecloths were on sale, and I was like, "Ooh, those would be a perfect little liner for your tote, not your tote, what is this? Your bowl liner." And they're also reversible. So this one did take advantage of the same pattern on each side. So they are reversible and you can just flip them around and just, make them for all your bowls in your house. They go right in the refrigerator and then you can just throw them in the wash and you're good to go. Now, let's talk about what materials you need to get started. So to get started, you just need, it's not even half a yard of material. And I selected two patterns. My local Michael's has fabric in the store. So I selected these two coordinating patterns. And I thought they were so pretty. And I was thinking, oh, I'll make these for Christmas gifts. And then they can use them throughout the year. So we'll start off with your fabric, and I did say to bring your parchment paper so you can create your pattern. So you want to have a container of parchment paper. Now I also am going to show you a tricky way to make your pattern. So if you have like an index card or a piece of scrap cardstock, in a minute you can go grab that, and I'm going to show you a cheater way to make your pattern. You'll want to have your empty bowl. So whatever bowl you're going to use, you want to have your bowl with you. You want to have a ruler or a tape measure. So your tape measure is flexible and your rulers aren't sturdy. So either way will work. You will need to use some type of marking system. So I'm going to use a Sharpie today so you guys can see my pattern as I draw it out, but you can use a washable Crayola marker. You can use the Fusion friction pens are washable. You can use your water soluble pen that's in the notions department. Even a pencil will work. So you just need something to mark your parchment paper or your fabric. And I'll show you a couple. Once we do the pattern, I'm going to show you how you can skip that on your next one. You want to have something that you'll be able to turn your circle inside out and kind of poke at the edges. So I find this is a wooden bone folder, is a great source to kind of work out those edges for me. You'll need to have your scissors. You want to have a seam ripper because you never know when you're going to have to take out your seam. You'll want to have a safety pin or an elastic pull-through piece, and I know this is kind of hard to see here. You'll need to have your sewing machine with thread that coordinates with your cover. Now, if you're putting your cover in the microwave, you would want to use a polyester thread instead of a cotton thread. I'm not intending these to go in the microwave, just in the refrigerator and the wash, so I'll be using just a cotton thread there. And I also have on hand my iron and an ironing surface. Okay, so if everyone wants to just go grab an index card or some piece of paper or cardstock, I'm going to show you a couple ways that you can make your pattern. For this, we'll want to go to the overhead camera. We can slide over. All right, actually, no, I jumped the frog. I jumped the frog. I jumped the shark. I'm going to share my screen real quick because I actually have a quick, just a little presentation for everybody so I can walk you through the steps. Sometimes I find when I get started with things, I get a little too excited. So let me just pause here if anybody's getting their index card and go over just this will be in the recording, so you'll have this later, but this is basically your step-by-step guide to making a bowl cover. So what you're going to need, this is just our contents. We're going to go over the introduction, which we've done, our supplies, which we've done. I'll walk you through the steps, have a few tips and tricks for you too. So we're making the sustainable bowl cover, which is a solution, so you're not using tinfoil or plastic wrap. Your list of your supplies: fabric, elastic, thread, scissors, measuring tape, pins. Oh, I forgot pins. Your sewing machine and your bowl. And then what we'll do is we'll measure our bowl to determine the size of our pattern. We'll make the pattern 2.5 inches bigger than our bowl. We'll cut 2 circles from our fabric. We'll stitch them with the right sides together with at least a 1/4 inch seam. And actually that's incorrect. It's about, we'll measure the seam, and everyone's might be a little bit different, but we'll talk about how to sew that first seam. And then we are going to cut notches in the seam, turn our circle right side out and press the edges. And then we're going to sew another circle where we'll thread our elastic and top stitch the corner. So 8 steps, guys, and then you'll have your sustainable bowl cover done. Now, a couple tips for making your cover. If you haven't used your machine for a while, I always like to recommend to start with a fresh needle. I don't change, when I was a young sewer, I didn't change my needle often enough, and I really benefit from changing my needle. When we get to clipping our stitches, you want to make sure you make plenty of notches. It'll make it easier to turn and press. Press your seams really well. And then also, you don't have to, but the top stitching on the outer edge really is kind of the chef's kiss. So a couple of variations on this pattern would be to use a single layer of linen fabric, and that's great if you make sourdough bread or anything like that, just to have the linen so it's breathable. You can use the iron-on vinyl for fabric specifically, which makes it waterproof. And then if you're taking this with like a bag of chips, maybe you're putting chips in your bowl or something just that you kind of want to keep bugs out of, I recommend using a mesh. So today we'll start with something that's 100% cotton, and then we'll merge up from there. Okay, so the first thing you're going to want to do is take your parchment paper and give yourself a fresh piece that is big enough for your bowl. Now, don't do anything yet. I'm going to show you a few ways that you can achieve your bowl size with the seam. One is you're just going to draw a circle around your bowl. So take your pencil and you draw a circle around the bowl pattern like that. And then if you want, you can fold it into quarters, find the center, and measure out from there. Depending on how tall your bowl is, will give you how much you want to add to your bowl. I find 2.5 inches gives me the seam allowance I need and gives me enough length to really give a good cover on the bowl. So once you've kind of decided that, then you can use your straight ruler and start to notch out your measurement. So if it's 2 or 2.5, you just kind of are going to start making notches like this and then connecting these notches to give yourself a complete circle around your bowl. So now when I put my bowl on here, I have exactly a circle pattern that is 2 or 2.5 inches from my bowl. So that's a bit of work, right? So let me show you an easier way to create your pattern. Once you have, if you want to do it on your parchment paper, you can, but you can also do this directly on your fabric. So if you're going to be making a lot of these, I recommend doing it on your parchment paper so you'll have a pattern. So what we're going to do is take your index card, and I actually trimmed my index card down to 3 inches. So it's just 3 inches wide here. And what we'll do is put your bowl onto overlap. Let me see, that's kind of confusing with that circle there. Let me move that out of the way for you. Okay, so I'm going to put my little index card down. I'll take my bowl and pop that right on top and draw my circle. So now I have the outer edge of my circle. Oops, I didn't get that quite even, did I? Sorry, I want to get it even on here. So funny. I think it's because I'm at a weird angle, but we're just going to try this one more time like that. Why is that not? I don't have it on the right distance of my bowl. So let's try this. Why is that not working for me? Somehow I think when I was able to do it not on the overhead camera, it works, because basically what we're creating is a piece like this that's going to go on the edge of the bowl. And so we just need to have that first edge on the bowl. So let's just do it like this. We'll slide it under. And I'll have that corner and that corner just barely showing. And then that should give me the right arc right there. Perfect. Okay, so you can see there it works. I've got a nice little arc. So take your index card, put your bowl right on those corners. So I've got just touching and just touching, and go ahead and draw your bowl arc like that. Then you're going to take your tape measure or your ruler, and depending on how far you decided you wanted your cover to go down the edge of your bowl, you're going to mark. So I would add at least a 1/2 inch. So 2 inches is how far I want to have extra. And then I'm going to add an extra 1/2 inch. So my bowl will be 2.5 inches. So from the edge where I marked it, I'm just going up 2.5 inches and I'm marking, and I'll do that on both sides. So I've got that marked there. If you want, you can draw a nice little circle, a line across, or you can just leave your little marks there, because we're going to take our bowl back and line up again our corners with the edge of our bowl. And then you're just going to draw a line like that. And you should end up with a nice pattern that is 2.5 inches. Then when you take your scissors, not your sewing scissors, your regular paper scissors, and we're going to cut that arc out here on the bottom side of our template, and then also on the top side of our template right here. Okay, so now we've got that. Now you can see on my pattern, as I move my template around my circle on my parchment paper, I don't even have to worry too much about connecting the dots. Oops. I just overlap a little bit and keep drawing my circle around. Okay, just like that. And if you find that it dips in too far, like as you're doing it, if you notice that it dips in too far, you can just modify the width of your pattern here. So as you draw that line, if you find, like if you go here and it dips in, so it's not going to give me a super smooth there, you can just modify your pattern a little bit and kind of get at that high point there of your pattern and work your way around. So that will match up there. Okay. So once you've created your index card to create your pattern, or you've used the measurement here and gone 2.5 inches and just gone all the way around your circle, you will either have a parchment pattern, or you'll be ready. Sorry for my arm, I'm going to open up my Q&A. You'll either have your parchment ready to go, or your pattern ready to go here. So what then I like to do is if you're using your bowl pattern, this little guy here, or your paper pattern, we're just going to take our fabric. And if you're doing the same fabric on the inside and the outside, you'll just fold it in half. If you're doing two separate fabrics, you want to make sure that your right sides are together. So we're going to put it down on your paper, on your workspace, smooth it out like this so that your right sides are together. Then we will take our bowl, and you can put your bowl on your fabric and just make sure you've got enough space all the way around to draw your line out. And I'm just going to use a Sharpie so you guys can see. You see it, I start over here. You'll want to use something that is either, like a washable pen, or a friction pen, which is also washable, or a specific washable pen that's specific for fabric. So any of these will work. You can even use your pencil. We're going to cut this edge, so anything you use will be cut off. Now we're just going to move this pattern around our circle as we go and draw our lines. And it doesn't have to be like perfect, but you want to get a nice circle shape all the way around your bowl. You just want to make sure your bowl doesn't move on you. And if you have to, if you have a gap there, that's okay. You can just come back in and pen that back in. So we're just going to go all the way around our bowl. Again, if you have some space open here, you can just close that gap either with your template or just eyeballing it. Well, you won't see this edge, Kathy. Kathy says the dips in the pattern might make a nice scallop edge, and it would, except you won't see the, this is where we're going to cut, so you won't see that edge there. And it's funny, with this one, and I did it, it was, my edges were perfect. But, sometimes everything doesn't come out perfect, but it works. This is an easy, I think this was the easy, I've done patterns like this so many different times for so many different projects, and I finally came up with this method, and I was like, oh, this makes it a little bit easier. So we're just going to be moving our template around and creating that circle. Again, just matching that up onto here. So if you have like a little bit of a dip, it's okay. If you have a big dip, like if you had like if your dip was like this, then that would be a problem. And you just would want to match that as you go around like that. So match the highest point. So if you had 3 dips like that, you just want to kind of cover that hole up there. So you just kind of draw that way. Okay, is everybody with me? Once you have your circle drawn out, we're just going to take our scissors and cut out our pattern. I joke about using paper scissors and fabric scissors. My mom, I don't know why, she only had like 2 pairs of scissors in our 3 pairs of scissors. We had the kitchen shears, we had sewing scissors, and then we had other scissors, all-purpose scissors. And she used to chase after us all the time, be like, who's got my scissors? So when I had kids, I think our house was just chock full of scissors. Maybe I was a crafty kid, so I was always going after the scissors in our house. So even there where it's like a little gap, you can see I'm just connecting those lines there. Once it's gathered up, even if you had a little gap there and you sewed a little scallopy edge, once you add the elastic into it, it's going to gather it together and it's going to make that non-existent. So, if you're new to, this is a great beginner project because it's very forgiving. you'll see as we go through, it's super forgiving. Now, once you've got that done, if you want to pin it, you can certainly pin it or use your Wonder clips to hold it together. You also want to do just a little mark of, and I'm going to use this pen here because this, I don't want this to show, but about 2 inches. So just give yourself about 2 inches. And we're going to give a little mark right there. This way, what we're going to do next is we're going to stitch around the edge. Now, if you're comfortable stitching 1/4 inch, go ahead and do that. If you want to stitch a little bit more, go ahead in about 3/8 inch should be enough. So 1/4 to 3/8 inch will give you enough. If you do your seam too thick, what will happen is once we turn it and create the channel for our elastic, the seam allowance kind of gets in the way. But if 1/4 inch, you're not comfortable, you think, oh, that's too small, go ahead and do 3/8 inch. So here is my measuring ruler. So you can see 1/4 inch will be just about there. 3/8 inch is just 1 step closer in. So it just gives you a little bit more. But I found doing the 3/8 inch did get a little bit in the way of the seam. Okay, I'm going to go grab my Wonder clips. And if you want to meet me over at my sewing machine, we will get sewing. And I like the Wonder clips as well as regular pins. But I found that with the Wonder clips, the benefit to those, if you're doing the vinyl, it doesn't pierce the vinyl. So that's kind of why I like to use the Wonder clips. So I'm just going to kind of clip that together. Remind yourself where your opening is because that's where you're going to want to start sewing. Okay, so here I come. So here we go here. Now, all right. So I'm just using the Singer patchwork machine, and I've kind of got it positioned, hopefully so I have enough room for myself to sew and you guys to see. So this machine, I'm just doing a straight stitch, and you can see here's where my opening ends and here's where it starts. So I'll start my needle right where that opening is. 1/4 inch on most machines. Now, maybe older machines might be a little bit different, but 1/4 inch on your machine should be the width of the side of your foot. So from this edge of your foot to where your needle goes in should be 1/4 inch. So I like to do that 1/4 inch because it gives you like a really nice, easy seam to follow through with. And I just have it on the regular, a straight stitch right now. So I'm just going to go ahead and start stitching around. And as you come to your clips, you can just pull those out, or your pins, you just want to carefully remove those. And again, this is a very forgiving stitch for a beginner. If you are just getting started, I like to hold my hand up here and keep my material flat and hold it here to make sure that my sides are matching up. Depending on how comfortable you are, you might feel more comfortable stopping your machine and taking your pin or your clip out. As you sew more, you'll get more comfortable just kind of leaving your taking your pins and your clips out for, depending on what kind of fabric you're sewing. You see how I'm just moving my hand and I'm kind of helping the fabric to rotate. And it's just moving along nicely. Having that straight edge certainly does make it easy to guide along. And you can see if you had a funky edge here, it really doesn't affect you. Like it's okay. You can just keep moving that 1/4 inch and moving your way around. And again, even if you went wonky with it, you won't notice it at the end. So this is a really good pattern. If you have any kids that want to learn how to sew, this is a great thing for them to sew on. Now, you can do a start-stop here when you come to that line. you can do the back and forth, move your needle back and forth. If you're doing the vinyl on it, I don't recommend doing that because you don't want to puncture your material more than you need to. Once you get to that end stitch, we're just going to lift our presser foot, slide out our fabric, and we'll trim that off just like that. If you're still stitching around, don't worry, keep going. We're going to go over to the iron now. So we'll just go back over to that overhead camera where I've got my iron set up, and we'll talk about the next steps. Okay, so let me get this on here. Hopefully we can do this together. I made a little irons because I knew I wouldn't be able to get my ironing board over here. So here's my stitch, and you can see I stitched it all the way around. If it's a little puckery, again, don't worry about that. You'll be, once you put the elastic in and we finish it off, you don't have to worry about it. So if it gets a little puckery here or your seam isn't perfectly lined up here, again, it'll all come out when it's finished. You won't even notice it. So I'm going to grab my scissors and trim off my threads here. Now I'm okay if this loosens up just a little bit. Now what we want to do next is notch all the way around the edge. So a notch to help with the turning is like a V. So you're just going to give yourself a little V into the fabric. You don't want to go all the way into your stitch. You don't want to cut into your stitches, but you want to cut your fabric. And this is so that it sort of reduces the bulk in your, when we go to iron and everything and flip it. Now I do this about every inch or so. You'll just give yourself a cute little notch there. If anybody's into TikTok, very demure, little notch right here. And we're just going to work that all the way around the pattern. So if you're still working on your seam, you've got plenty of time to come over and work on your notches with me. Feel like a hair cutter sometimes when I do this. But this is if you're making a bunch of these, like if you're doing a craft fair and you want to make some bowl covers, some sustainable bowl covers for a craft fair, you could stitch a whole bunch of these at once, and then in the evening just take your scissors and clip around, or if you're watching your kids at the pool, take your little stitching bag with you and go around. So the only place I'm not going to clip it is where we have our opening. So in that spot, we want to leave leave the fabric full there. You could slip it, but we're going to need that fabric to do when we close our bag, our circle up, we're going to need that to have that material there. So once I get to that, my opening spot, I will not clip it.
Hey, Kesley.
Yeah.
Amy asked a really good question, I feel like. Could you use pinking shears in place of doing what you're doing right now and cut all the way around?
So pinking shears are great for keeping your fabric from raveling. And since we're using 100% cotton fabric, that is an issue. But this seam is going to be on the inside. And really what the notch is for is so that as your fabric goes in, it's just to reduce the amount of bulk in there. So your seams would still lay the same way if you pinking sheared the edge, or if you did the straight the little notches. So I would say do the notches instead of the pinking shears. I know that's usually like the pinking shears are great for edges, but in this instance, I think you're gonna really want the bulk to reduce down. So that's why you notch. A lot of times too, patterns will tell you to notch the notch so you can line something up together. Okay, so once we've got that done, we're ready to turn it inside out. So we're just gonna take our fabric through that opening, and that's why that opening is important. You don't want to pull on it since I didn't back stitch there. I'm being a little bit gentle on the opening itself. But I made my opening big enough so I could stick my hand in there and really make sure that I get it nice and open. If you wanted to, you could press your seam open before turning it, but I find that with something like this, your material is going to go one way. So instead of opening up that seam, it's easier just to leave your seam in there flat. Now I'm going through and kind of pulling on my edges here, and then I'm going to go back and do the same thing as I lay it flat. This is where you can use that little, your bone piece. You can use this part if you need to, if you have something that's not laying down flat, or the bigger side. Because basically all we want to do is work our way around and make sure that your seam is coming out. So I'm just inside, I'm just kind of running that right around that seam there. All right. So once you've got that, how you like it, you think, okay, I've got it tucked out. See how it's kind of like square right there? It's sort of squared off. I'm just going to come back and use my bone folder there and just kind of give that a little push out to make it a little rounder and not square. Now from here, what we need to do is get a really nice crisp edge, and we'll achieve that with our ironing machine, with our iron. Now, if you wanted to, you could stick your hand in here, and I actually do this sometimes when I sew, and I use these gloves. So I use my gloves and I'll put my hand, I don't know if it'll fit in there now, but I'll put my seam with my finger under it and then just grab my iron and press that seam with my finger under it. A lot of times I just do that with my finger and not use my glove, but I don't want to encourage anybody to burn themselves. So you don't have to do that. You can see I've got a really nice form of a circle. And so we're just going to start pressing the seam. I'll finger press it a bit, and then we'll come back with the iron and really make sure you've got a nice flat seam there. So if you want to, you can just kind of roll that down like that. Take your iron and just put your iron right on it. Keep working your way around your circle. Somebody's saying my voice is low. I'm not sure if that's everybody. Is your volume? I don't think. Okay, here we go.
I can hear you fine, Kesley.
You can hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Good question, Amy. Can you still iron if using the vinyl like fabric? So if you're using, that's a great question. Thank you for reminding me about that. If you're using your vinyl material, you do not want to put your iron straight on it because it will burn the vinyl. So you want to use your parchment paper or the liner that the vinyl comes on to be the barrier there. So you don't want to like press in. See how that was kind of like that? You don't want to press that seam in. So you want to make sure you've rolled that open there. And then once we get to the closing part, we are going to press that under as if it were sewn. So this part here, we're going to press that under as if it were sewn. So you still want to maintain your circle. And you're going to want your pieces to line up. So this is where if you wanted to, if you felt like, you know what, that's really not going well, I want to put a little notch in there so it folds open. You could add a little notch right here. Just be careful you don't go too far in. with that little notch, that'll just help that kind of spread open a little bit. Trying to get my circle going right. I feel like this flower side is looking good. So we're gonna press that side first. If anybody has the Cricut mini press, this is a great time to use it when you have like a little opening like this to press that down. Okay, perfect. So we're just gonna make sure this is flat and lining up. All right, perfect. So now the next step is we're going to go ahead and stitch inside our circle. Grab your elastic. You may have a 1/4 inch, a 1/2 inch, a 3/8 of an inch elastic. And we're going to just kind of measure how far in you want to make your circle. So we'll add a top stitch where our opening is at the very last. We'll add a top stitch right here. And I usually leave about a 1/4 of an inch for my top stitch. So I'll measure in a 1/4 of an inch. My elastic, so this elastic is about 3/8 of an inch. And then a little extra space so it's not too difficult to move my elastic out of the way when I do my top stitch. So I'm going to plan on going 3/4 of an inch, stitching all the way around, but not where my opening is, because we need to, we're going to need to put the elastic in where the opening is. So again, grab your clips or your pins and just mark where your opening is, and then meet me back over at the sewing machine so we can stitch a 3/4 inch circle. So for my sewing machine, my 3/4 inch is right here at the edge of my plate. You also have markings on your machine itself that will tell you where 3/4 of an inch is. You can take your ruler and put it down as well to see where your 3/4 of an inch is. Sometimes you might want to put, like, if you're doing a deep seam like that, you may want to put some tape down so you know where your seam needs to go. So I'm just going to start. Oh wait, we do sew around the whole thing. Don't worry about your opening. Sorry. We're going to sew 3/4 of an inch from the edge all the way around the circle. So let's go ahead and do that. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. So if you're a beginner, this is, don't worry, this is a great project for you. If you're not 3/4 of an inch exactly the whole time, that's okay. It won't damage your outline. We just kind of want to keep it nice and flat as we go around. And I can tell there's my opening, so I'm getting close to where I started. Now, sometimes when I'm sewing something like this and I'm going to have some strings hanging out, I like to take the end of my thread here where I started, and I will pull that up so it will pull up the bobbin thread. Let me just grab that and like, whoops, and then do that. I'm going to show you my trick. So the reason I'm doing this is I like to pull up my bobbin thread to the front of my work. So I'll bring up that bobbin thread here, and then I can just trim both of those fibers off, or you can burn them off if you want to. And then that just gives me a cleaner stitch. I don't have those to worry about as I finish up, and I want to just make sure I'm matching up my line. Okay, so that's it. That's all we need to do. That 3/4 inch circle all the way around. And I'll show you again. Just take your top thread and kind of pull it up a little bit, and you'll see your bottom thread loosens up. And then you can just pull that right up to the top. You can tie it off if you need to, or just clip it like that. So now I have my opening, and I'm ready to put in my elastic. If you want to meet me back over at the overhead camera, we'll decide how big our elastic needs to be. So if you grab your bowl and your elastic, you want to take your elastic and wrap it around the bowl about where it's going to sit. So that might be down about 1 inch or so. And if it slips up and down your bowl a lot, don't worry. You can like put a little piece of tape right here to hold it in place. So, or get somebody in the house if they can just hold it for you. Let's grab a piece of tape here. Because you just want to give it a little pull, and if it slides around on you, that makes it a little difficult. So we can just kind of tape that right there on the bowl, and we'll come around the bowl to get our measurement. And you want this to be, we want this to be a little tight on our bowl, because you want to be able to, you want it to hold onto the bowl when you put it on. So you need to have your elastic be able to tighten up on your bowl. So let's do, I'm going to switch this around a little bit and do a little piece of tape on each side of the bowl to hold my elastic. So I know exactly, so I can kind of pull on it a little bit and know exactly how much I need to cut. So with the tape holding my elastic in place a little bit, I'm going to pull on my elastic. So I cut it a little bit smaller than the actual size of my bowl. Okay, and it's helpful if you have an extra pair of hands, because it is slippery around your bowl. So if you need to, just kind of finger it, hold it with your fingers, kind of come back and say, okay, if my elastic's this big, how's that going to fit around my bowl, and work it on your bowl. Goodness gracious. Let's see if it's easier to turn it upside down. That may help. Turn it upside down, holding my elastic. And we're just going to put it onto the bowl and go tight. Nope, I need extra hands. All right, so there we go. That's tight, and I've got room to adjust it if I need to. I think that's pretty good. Okay. I wish I had like a magic measurement to tell you that would work. So we're just going to cut it from our measurement around it. You will either sew or tie a knot in the end, so it'll be even a little bit tighter than you think it's going to be, and that's still okay. Okay, use a clip to hold it. Let's try that. Could these types of covers be used in the microwave? So if you are putting it in the microwave, you do not want to use cotton fabric, because your cotton fabric, I said cotton fabric. You don't want to use cotton thread. I don't know, it's something about like the narrowness of the thread, putting it in a microwave. You want to use polyester in the microwave. And I don't think I would put the vinyl in the microwave. If you do the vinyl fabric, like the tablecloth fabric, I don't know that I'd put that in the microwave. Okay, that worked. Look at that. Good suggestion. All right, so now I've got my measurement. I'm going to just trim my elastic, and we're going to thread the elastic through the hole. I don't remember which side I'm working on here. Okay. Now I have this handy dandy dressmaker tool that has a round end on this side and 2 little loops here. I got this years ago to restring hoodies. When the hoodie string comes out, it's perfect. Find my opening here. Here we go. So I've got my opening, and I'm just going to put my end in there, and we're just going to work this around so that you're threading your elastic into it almost comes out like a shower cap. You're basically making a shower cap. Now, if you don't have a tool like this, you can just use a paper clip and push it through. it's just like a scrunchie. So you can use a not a paper clip, a safety clip, and push it through and have it come out. What you don't want to have, you don't want to lose your end. So we're going to keep our eye on the end of our elastic so we don't lose it on the inside. So I'm just going to grab that. And we're just going to work that elastic through. It really does end up like a shower cap. Or like a little bonnet. So if anybody has to do like a historical costume or anything like that, this makes a cute little bonnet. Think of Laura Ingalls Wilder, The Little House on the Prairie. Okay, so we're just gonna pull that right through. Just like that. So you have your two ends on the other side. And if you want to give those a little clip and hold those or safety pin them together, and then you'll want to work your elastic around evenly around the fabric. So your ruffles are pretty even around. Okay, and once you're pretty happy with how that looks, so see it does kind of look like a little bonnet, to grab your bowl. Okay, so here we go here. I just want to make sure that that is all the way around and it's perfect like that. Okay. And then once you've got that, we know where we're going to sew it. You can just tie a little knot in that if you want to, or bring it over to your sewing machine and do a little zigzag stitch on your end right there, which is what I think I'm going to do. So let's go back over to the sewing machine. And Bobby, I may be mixing it up. Bobby's making a really good comment. The comment is, why then when you make a bowl koozie, which is supposed to go into the microwave, does it say to use cotton materials, including cotton batting and cotton thread? And I may be mixing it up. So thank you for pointing that out, because I have done the bowl koozies and I may be mixing it up, and it probably, so let's retract all that I said about which thread to use if you're putting it in the microwave, cotton or polyester. Double check that before you make them. Okay, so back at the sewing machine now, we're just going to do that little zigzag stitch on our little elastic here. Okay, so here we go. So I'm just going to do either you can do a straight, I would do a zigzag stitch versus like a box stitch or something like that. So just change your stitch to a zigzag. Let's see. And we'll just do a zigzag right over that elastic. And you can go back and forth with it if you need to. There we go, we'll just do it a couple times. You go back up there, okay. All right, so here we go, I've got that tight. I probably go over it a couple more times, just so that I have it tight enough. I think I just got off my fabric to do my back stitch, sorry guys. Yep. Okay, I don't have any fabric under there, so we're just gonna pull that out. And I'll do one more little cross stitch here. And the zigzag, you go this way. And just zigzag that right across. Okay. Now we're just gonna cut that out. Trim off all of our threads. Now this is where we're going to do that top stitching. So top stitching allows you to do a thicker, wider stitch than your actual seam stitch is. So you're going to want to change your machine, if you can, if you know how, to a top stitch. So I'm going to take mine from like a 2 stitch to a 4 stitch. If you have any little threads left at your opening, you can pull those through and clip them or knock them off. I'm just gonna do a little clip here. Clip and clip here. Okay, and we'll go over here, same thing. Just that little clip. Okay, so don't forget to change your stitch length if you want to. When you change your stitch length to a top stitch, it does go a little bit faster, so it may pull your fabric in a little bit faster than you're used to. Now, you do have, I have plenty of opening here for my top stitch to go and my elastic. So I can feel my elastic, it's like right here. So there's my stitch, here's my elastic, and here's where I'm gonna top stitch. So my top stitch isn't gonna go in more than 1/4 of an inch, and that's still gonna give me room for my elastic. I'll go a little bit slow to make sure that the elastic doesn't get under my needle. And I can just kind of use my fingernail and keep that way. So let me, oops, I need to be on a regular stitch. This, turn around, turn it back off, get back to 0 here. And then I'll just go up to a size, to a 4 stitch length on my machine. Let's see. I think I'm gonna go in a little bit closer to my edge there. I had it in the wrong spot. This is where our little seam ripper comes in handy. Okay, we're gonna go right on the edge here because we want to make sure we capture that opening and we get that closed up. Okay, so just gonna go right there. Hold that opening with my finger. And I'm just gonna go right along the edge there and do my top stitch right along the edge. As you work your way around, you're going to come to where your ruffles are, and you can just kind of scoot those out of the way or pull on that elastic to kind of stretch that out. Make sure your elastic's not going to get caught up in your needle. You go ahead and stitch that down. Do a little pull. Moving this around. Usually I like to sink my needle if I'm gonna like pick it up. So that the needle's at least holding my fabric in place if it wiggles off me. So if you're using a bulkier fabric, you may want to make sure you have your needle so that it will sink down into your fabric as you're going along. Got a little twist there, but that's okay. That's not going to affect the quality of my bowl covering. The thing which is most important is you don't want your material to twist on you as you're going around and get caught up in your ruffles. There we go. We're right back at the end there. You can back stitch if you like, and then you're all done. So we're just going to go like this, and we will pop this off. Now, if you are doing the, if you're going to do the vinyl, the iron-on vinyl, I like to press the iron-on vinyl first onto just a square of fabric, and then I will cut my circle out. It just seemed easier to me to instead of cutting out the vinyl in a circle and then cutting your fabric in a circle, just to go ahead and put the vinyl on your material as a square, and then you can always cut it into your circle, and it pressed easier that way too. So yes, do you need to top stitch around the whole bowl cover or just around the opening. You can just top stitch on the opening. I kind of like the finished edge with the top stitch all the way around, and it will help hold your elastic in place too. If you top stitch it all around, but you do not have to do that. You can either top stitch it or slip stitch it with a needle and thread on that opening to go all the way around. Thank you. So Kathy did a little research for us, and it is natural fibers can go in the microwave, synthetic cannot, and polyester does melt. I know that. I just got it in my head wrong, so I apologize. Use your cotton thread if you're putting this in the microwave, not your polyester thread. So thank you for checking on me, Kathy. I appreciate that we got the right answer before our workshop ended. But that's it. Now we have our bowl cover. You can modify this with the other suggestions. I was even thinking if you have kids that spill their popcorn, if they're watching a movie, to actually sew 2 half circles. So there's a slit here where they can slip their hand in and grab their popcorn. And if their bowl spills over, they're not going to lose their popcorn's not going to spill everywhere. So I thought that was a fun idea. You can also think about adding like a little pocket to the top of this and putting a note in it. So if you have a new neighbor and you're taking something over to them, you could have a little pocket sewn in. That's also a great reminder of what's in the bowl. So if you have like a little pocket in there and a little note that says chili from Tuesday night, or whatever you've got left over, it's right in your bowl ready to go. All right, guys, thank you so much. Thank you guys so much for joining in. This is a great project. Again, if you make something, please do post it. Michael's Learn with Michael's would love to see what you make and what you share. If you are just getting into sewing, we do have a pattern reading class this month on Michael's with Simplicity, and it's going to talk about how to read a pattern. So this is a great project for a beginner. We do have the Bowl Cozy project that is also on Michael's YouTube. And so join me for another sewing class later this month. Thank you all so much for being here.